This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. For 6 months, officers have been investigating a string of arson attacks around Winnipeg. Fires set at the constituency offices of 2 NDP cabinet ministers and several restaurants and bars throughout Winnipeg. And tonight, police have arrested the man they say is responsible. CBC's Felicia Adam has been following this story for us. And Felicia, what do we know about the man who's been arrested?
Well, Brittany, his name is Jesse Wheatland. Before this, police say he wasn't on their radar. They believe he acted alone. The 35-year-old was arrested shortly after police say he set a fire on Magnus Avenue. Now he's facing a slew of charges.
For months, the doors to Commonwealth Kitchen and Bar have been closed. In July, the restaurant was set on fire, leaving extensive damage. Co-owner Nicola Maharaj says it's been hard. As they work to reopen, the news of the arrest gives him some relief.
Relief because one of our fears obviously is reopening and then the same thing happens again. So knowing that the person who's linked to a bunch of them is off the streets definitely helps.
Police say after an investigation that started in June, they've charged 35-year-old Jesse Wheatland with 22 offenses.
Wheatland was acting alone when he attended these locations, causing damage by breaking windows, lighting fires, and in some cases both.
Wheatland is charged with arson with disregard for human life, 13 counts of arson causing damage to property, 2 counts of break and enter and committing arson, 2 counts of break and enter with intent, and 4 counts of mischief.
I think the message to an arsonist is that we're not going to give up. It may be challenging, it may take us some time to do this, but we don't give up.
It happened at 11 locations. Police say some buildings were attacked multiple times and include restaurants, clubs, a provincial treatment center, and the constituency offices of NDP MLAs Bernadette Smith and Nahani Fontaine. Fontaine says she's relieved.
The last months have been very uncertain, and in some respects, it has left us feeling a little bit scared and frightened sometimes.
Mayor Scott Gillingham says the city will continue to crack down on cases like these.
When a restaurant is damaged or forced to close because of an arson, it affects, of course, the owners, the suppliers, the staff, and the customers. It disrupts livelihoods and shakes confidence in neighborhoods that depend upon these businesses.
Jay Kilgore is the chair of the Manitoba Restaurant and Food Services Association.
I'm thankful that it's over now, and these, a lot of the fires that had been brought to our attention through the association, it checked off, today's arrest checked off a lot of those boxes.
Police would not talk about Wheatland's motives, but say his arrest is not connected to a recent string of extortion attempts and arsons at businesses. Felicia Adams, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some much-needed repairs are in the works for an Indigenous cultural hub on Main Street. Several months ago, frustrated community members organized a protest inside the Circle of Life Thunderbird House, demanding it be restored. Now those repairs are happening. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the details.
The Circle of Life Thunderbird House is fenced off and closed to the public. The copper's coming off the roof, the plywood is showing, and anybody who walks by can clearly see the need for repairs.
Because I ain't going nowhere.
When Megan Selwyn found out community members weren't allowed inside Thunderbird House because of safety concerns, she decided to organize an occupation protest. That was in March.
I just said, screw it, I'm going to come and plop down here and then see what happens. And that's kind of how it all started.
Selwyn and others lobbied the board of directors to make repairs. Now, after months of protest, she learned an architecture company is fixing the roof.
I feel like us being here, like community actually using this space, got them to be like, hey, there's people who actually love this place, let's get it done.
Colleen Rajat became Thunderbird House board chair shortly after the protest started. She says volunteers run the board and there's no paid staff. She says the board's priority is getting the roof fixed.
We understand their concerns that the building has fallen into disrepair, and I can understand that they think that, this is, taking too long. But behind the scenes, there's been a lot of work going on.
In 2023, Thunderbird House got nearly $2.8 million for repair work through a federal program. Rajat says the roof and other repairs will be paid for with that money.
the windows, the doors, the kitchen inside, the plumbing needs to be repaired. We recently had the sprinkler system fixed.
Aero Commercial Exteriors is fixing the roof. Owner Peter Parkman says his company is 50% Indigenous owned, and they understand the role Thunderbird House plays in the community.
It's a building of teaching and healing, and it needs to be restored, and everyone wants to see it rejuvenated here.
Parkman says the work will start next week, and he expects the roof will be fixed by March of next year. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba has big plans for changes to the healthcare system. Among them, the province wants to end mandatory overtime for healthcare workers. But the plans are garnering mixed reactions from advocates and experts. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
Some of Manitoba's commitments for healthcare are getting mixed reactions after Tuesday's speech from the throne. Among the promises, creating a patient safety charter, legislating the number of patients assigned to staff in priority areas, and putting an end to mandatory overtime for healthcare workers.
I can hardly wait for it to happen. However, I don't believe we are at a position with staffing at this point that we're going to be able to do that successfully.
Manitoba Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson argues the province still needs more nurses if it wants to stop mandatory overtime.
I believe that, first of all, patient care is going to suffer.
University of Manitoba Associate Professor of Nursing Sonia Udod agrees.
Who will take care of the patients when there are, no nurses to take over? So I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
As of last month, the NDP government says nearly 3,400 net new healthcare workers had been hired across the province in its 2 years in power. Of those, 1,100 are nurses. On Wednesday, Premier Wab Kinew once again blamed healthcare management for the ongoing practice of mandatory overtime. He insisted the system does have enough nurses.
The issue is the hospital administration. We've been giving them all the money. We've been giving them all the staffing resources. We've been giving them the direction. It's time for them to show results.
CBC has reached out to all 5 regional health authorities and Shared Health for comment. The opposition questions how the government will enforce their promises on OT.
I think it's pretty wild for the Premier to say that we have enough nurses. I think it's pretty clear that we don't. Anyone who's visited a Manitoba hospital lately will tell you that.
The Nurses Union says if only some areas of healthcare have rules around staffing per patient, other areas could suffer. The health changes are expected to come forward in the spring legislative session. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province is making it easier to become a first responder, bringing help via an ambulance. The NDP government visited Red River College today to celebrate the return of a direct entry course. Students don't need prerequisites like anatomy to apply and can do so right out of high school. The change means Red River filled all 40 seats for this fall's classes.
Government has worked hard in these last 2 years to break down these barriers to entry. We know Manitoba needs more paramedics, that's not a secret, and we couldn't be happier to see full classes across this province and all hands on deck to make that happen.
The Tories added the prerequisite requirements in 2023, with one school saying it lowered enrollment as a result. Swimmers are being welcomed back to the Bonnie Vital pool. The facility was closed for almost a year and a half while the city renovated the 50-year-old site. Upgrades to most of the building have been done, including heating, ventilation, lighting, and mechanical systems. It's also now fully accessible with improved change rooms and lifts. The mayor says it was a hub for generations, and now it will be a gathering place for people for years to come. All right, well, gone was the sun today. It was pretty gray out there. Let's take a look at the forecast with weather specialist Riley Lechuk.
Well, thanks, Brittany. Certainly, a bit of a cloudier day across much of southern Manitoba today. A bit of precipitation out there as well, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Looking at temperatures, though, still well above seasonal for this time of the year. In Winnipeg, we should be around -3 for a daytime high. So we're doing pretty good continuing this above seasonal stretch of temperatures. Morden Winkler at 7 degrees, closer to freezing into parts of western Manitoba. And that's because we have a weak front that started to push through parts of western Manitoba, connected to an area of low pressure a bit further north. And this is bringing some snow through the overnight hours into parts of northern Manitoba, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But into southeastern Manitoba, this is where we've seen some scattered showers, some pockets of rain throughout the day today. And where we have seen some of that today, we do have the potential of seeing some patchy fog overnight tonight. So -2, slim chance of a few scattered showers in Winnipeg. That takes us into the morning hours. And Brittany, tomorrow looking a bit brighter through the afternoon with a high of 3 degrees. Your full forecast in just a bit.
All right. Thank you, Riley.
People in the Flin Flon area are still picking up the pieces after losing their cabins and homes to wildfires. I'm Rosanna Hempel, and coming up, we'll bring you a story of a woman who's channeling that grief into art.
The Manitoba government defended Tuesday's throne speech today. The blueprint for next year contains some big promises, including finding a way to bring down the price of groceries. CBC's Josh Crabb joins us now with the details. So Josh, how exactly can a provincial government do that?
Brittany, they're promising to commission a study to find ways to save you money on groceries. This morning on CBC's Information Radio, Premier Wab Kinew said more details will come in the budget this spring. When asked about removing the provincial sales tax from grocery store bills, Kinew did not rule that out.
You know, my left-wing economics profs are not going to like this, the fact that I was their student 20 years ago or whatever, but the reality is you cut consumer-facing tax, it helps people. And so, yeah, that's certainly one thing we'll look at.
Most basic grocery items are already exempt from the PST, and one expert tells CBC there's only so much a provincial government can do because food price increases are more global in nature. Kinew acknowledges it will require a comprehensive approach.
So, Josh, what is the opposition saying about the government's plan?
Progressive Conservative finance critic Lauren Stone says the PCs support tax relief, but Stone suggested another solution.
They can call on Prime Minister Carney to end the industrial-based carbon tax. This is a carbon tax that still exists in Manitoba. Fertilizer, food processing, ag processing. All of that creates passed-down costs to food that end up with higher costs at the grocery stores.
Industrial carbon pricing incentivizes large emitters to reduce emissions by charging companies that exceed their limits. The federal system applies to Manitoba because it doesn't have its own, but most other provinces do.
So, Josh, it wasn't all about the issue of affordability today.
That's right, Brittany. Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says institutional safety officer positions will be posted for Thompson General Hospital. Now, nurses in the northern Manitoba city are voting this week on grey-listing the facility to discourage others from taking jobs there. The nurses union says they're concerned about understaffing and violence. Asaguera says 8 safety officer positions will be hired, with postings going up in the coming days.
We recognize that there are still challenges in healthcare, including in the north and including in Thompson. We've worked with them to ensure that they're taking steps to improve safety and security.
Winnipeg's Health Sciences Centre was previously grey-listed, but Asaguera says that hasn't stopped the province from hiring new nurses there. The minister says 39 have been hired since that happened back in August. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Josh Crabb. After losing their cabins and homes to wildfires this summer, some people in the Flin Flon area are still picking up the pieces. And one woman did just that and has put those pieces on display at a local art gallery. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel visited the northern Manitoba city as part of our Communities in Focus series. This is a story of how residents there are turning grief into hope.
Jan Modler bought this Birch Lake property in 1974. Over the next 50 years, her family built out the log cabin here into a gathering space. In early June, the wildfire that devastated nearby Denier Beach, Saskatchewan, ravaged her house too.
We felt pretty devastated, especially, my daughter and our granddaughter, and they were really, really upset.
They came back to debris. The house, a pile of rubble. Only a few things survived. The dock, the fire pit, until they looked a little closer.
And we kind of picked out little things that we could see in the rubble. It surprised us. After a few days, it was like, this is just really interesting. Like, it's fascinating what this fire did.
Some things they'd collected over the years had been transformed.
It changed from green to white.
Now a selection of those salvaged things are on display this month at the Northern Visual Arts Centre in Flin Flon. Pottery and sculptures changed color or melted together. Others had a message that met the moment.
And we found it in the rubble. And I thought, well, that's another nice little message.
She says the exhibit is helping her grieve and process what happened. She hopes it helps others do the same.
And we found it like that. It was just broken in half. That kind of said how a lot of people were feeling. The things that we found are really symbolic of part of it, I think, is resilience. Part of it is, change.
At 74, Mother says it'll be hard to start over. She's left Birch Lake for Flin Flon for now.
I think that there's hope. This will pass, and we'll be okay.
Finding hope in the most unlikely places. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Flin Flon.
The Manitoba Labour Board says a construction company broke labour laws when it fired an employee who was trying to get workers to ditch their union for a new one. The Labour Board issued a $2,000 ruling against Acon Construction Solutions, saying the company committed unfair labour practices. It ordered them to pay the worker and the union $1,000 each. Riley back in now. We've been seeing above seasonal temperatures, but will it last, Riley?
Well, thanks, Brittany. Yeah, we are looking at temperatures remaining above seasonal for the short term, but I mean, Colette was kind of alluding to this last night. It doesn't last. And that's where I'm going to start tonight, is with the 10-day temperature trend. And as always, when I show this, take this as a bit of a guide as we go forward in time as to where we're going, not necessarily looking at the forecast temperature. So you can see this above seasonal stretch of weather continuing right through the early part of next week. But by the time we get to the end of the month, we are dipping, according to this forecast model, at least well below seasonal by the time we get to the 29th and 30th of the month, with high temperatures around -10 to -12, at least at this point. I mean, we'll revisit this as the state gets a bit closer toward the end of next week, for example, but it just gives you a bit of a baseline of where we're headed in the coming week or so here, temperature-wise. Few things on the go. First off, there is a weak area of low pressure to the north. This has started to spread some snow into parts of northern Manitoba as we head into the overnight hours here. That does push into the Hudson Bay coast. We'll talk amounts a little bit in just a moment here, but we are looking at that tapering off as we get into the morning hours tomorrow. In the south, high pressure starts to take hold. That does slip south of the border, though, so that's why I'm saying more of a mix of sun and clouds, or a partly cloudy sky as we get through the day Thursday. Bit more sun as we get into the day on Friday, as we start to see a bit of a ridge starting to form in the jet stream, and then another system pushes into northern Manitoba. This one looks like it could spread a bit more of an accumulating snow into parts of northern Manitoba as we head toward the weekend. So in terms of what's to come, I'm thinking another 2 to 5 centimeters by the time we get to the weekend, not totally out of the question. This number for Churchill might be a little bit high, but just know that there is some snow coming pretty much for all of northern Manitoba, but along the Hudson Bay coast, that's where we could see some of those enhanced accumulations as we get through the next couple of days here. Temperatures into the morning, starting above seasonal for this time of the year. Actually, I'm thinking Winnipeg closer to -2 first thing in the morning, -3s, -4s back into western Manitoba, and temperatures in the north. These are a bit more seasonal for this time of the year for northern Manitoba, under a bit of a trough, -7s and -8s, for example. We do get some sunshine for the next several days, really across much of southern Manitoba. So I'm calling it a mix of sun and clouds for Thursday, up to 3 degrees in the afternoon for Winnipeg, 0 for Friday. And then we're looking at temperatures between 3 and 5 degrees, Brittany, as we head into early next week.
All right. Thank you, Riley. Well, it doesn't look like snow out there yet. Downtown Winnipeg, though, looking very decorated for the holidays. We have more straight ahead.
Hi, I'm Kai Solomon, and I am a member of the CBC Community Advisory Board. Being able to lend my voice to the public broadcaster definitely has been able to help create change in the way stories are shaped when it comes to trans voices. I think being on the Community Advisory Board has helped me grow, and I think if anybody is thinking about joining, I think they should. I think I have been able to make a difference. Yeah, definitely.
Canadian and American officials have announced some arrests, indictments, and sanctions as part of their effort to bring Canadian fugitive Ryan Wedding to justice. Officials believe Wedding, who competed in snowboarding at the 2002 Winter Olympics, leads a transnational crime network. He's been on the FBI's most wanted list since March. Katie Nicholson has more.
U.S. officials today made it clear Canadian fugitive Ryan Wedding is at the top of the FBI's radar.
Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI will work with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice.
Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the reward for information leading to Wedding's capture, up from $10 million to $15 million, as she announced new charges against the former Olympic snowboarder.
Wedding is also accused of murdering a federal witness after he was indicted in 2024. He used a Canadian website called The Dirty News to post photographs of the witness and his wife in order to locate him, which ultimately succeeded. The witness was gunned down in a restaurant in Medellin before he could testify against Wedding. Today, we're unsealing a new indictment, charging Wedding with 2 additional counts of witness tampering and intimidation, murder, money laundering, and drug trafficking.
7 Canadians were among the arrests announced today for their alleged roles in Wedding's drug empire, including a Toronto-based lawyer who officials allege helped Wedding with bribery and murder. I spoke with RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem this afternoon.
This operation was the second phase of a giant slalom. There was 7 individuals who were arrested yesterday in Canada, and we had OPP that gave us a hand. Some were arrested in the province of Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and we're still looking for one more individual. They are all incarcerated right now. They're waiting for the extradition process. They will be facing criminal charges here in the United States.
Duhem said they're still looking for an 8th suspect. The Canadians will be tried in California pending extradition. That's because authorities allege Wedding uses that state as a hub to move cocaine around the world. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in the United Arab Emirates ahead of the G20 summit in South Africa. With Canada seeking new trading partners, Carney is looking to sign a formal investment agreement during this visit. But the relationship may come with some questions. The CBC's Ashley Burke explains.
Mark Carney's visit here in Abu Dhabi marks the first time a Canadian Prime Minister has traveled to the UAE in more than 40 years. Carney has come here looking to make deals. This is a place where FaceTime really matters, and there's a lot of money to be invested. The Prime Minister will be sitting down with the UAE's president, ministers, and the heads of some big investment funds. A senior Canadian official tells us Carney is expected to sign a formal investment agreement with the UAE and announce that Canada is starting talks towards an expedited free trade agreement. Now, this is all part of the Prime Minister's effort to make Canada less reliant on the U.S. during Donald Trump's trade war. The official said that means that the government will be doing business with countries that it might not perfectly align with, and politically, that's complicated. The UAE is not a democratic state, and we're told the local government is restricting all media from filming Carney sitting down with the UAE's president. This is rare. Often when world leaders meet, we're able to film it. The UAE is also facing allegations of supporting a paramilitary force accused of atrocities in Sudan, a claim it denies, but it's one of the security issues Canada is expected to raise during meetings that start on Thursday. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Abu Dhabi.
Canada Post could cut its workforce by almost half in the next decade. The Crown Corporation held its annual meeting yesterday. Its CEO says about 30,000 workers will leave through retirement and voluntary departures by 2035. Canada Post is struggling to modernize its service. It posted more than $1 billion in losses in the first 9 months of this year. That's due in part to fewer letters being sent and greater competition for parcel delivery. Contract negotiations with mail carriers have also dragged on for more than 2 years. 55,000 carriers remain on a rotating strike heading into the holiday season. Alberta is invoking the notwithstanding clause for the second time in just 3 weeks. It's now being used to block court challenges to a series of laws affecting transgender youth. As Aaron Collins shows us, the move has sparked a strong response.
Before it was even tabled, backlash to Bill 9 building outside the Alberta legislature.
I can't think of a single person whose life is being improved by what's happening with Bill 9.
That bill uses the notwithstanding clause to shield 3 laws passed last year. 2 are currently being challenged in the courts. All impact transgender Albertans, but opponents say using the notwithstanding clause, which allows governments to temporarily override charter rights, affects everyone.
When a government uses the notwithstanding clause to strip away rights, it is not just targeting one group, it's attacking the very foundation of our democracy.
The laws covered by the bill include restricting access to some gender reassignment treatments for youth, requiring parental consent for students under 16 to change their pronouns, and limiting participation in women's and girls' sports to those who were born female.
These measures reflect the views of an overwhelming majority of Albertans.
Alberta's premier says using the notwithstanding clause is about ensuring governments aren't overruled by the courts.
By invoking it, we're keeping these decisions in the hands of those who are directly accountable to Albertans.
This is the second time in under a month that Alberta has invoked the clause.
We're not gonna take it!
It was embedded in back-to-work legislation that ended a weeks-long teacher strike, too. Historically, the notwithstanding clause has primarily been used by Quebec, but in recent years, Ontario and Saskatchewan have invoked it too.
The provinces have used it more, also since there's been a kind of ideological non-alignment between a federal Liberal government and provincial Conservative governments that's sort of kicked off since 2015.
Saskatchewan's use of the notwithstanding clause for its pronoun law is being challenged in the Supreme Court. Alberta's law could face a similar fight. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
Ontario lawmakers are considering the possibility of forcing drivers to pay child support if they kill a child's parent or guardian in a crash. The provincial government outlined the proposed law in a press release on Tuesday, noting that a similar step has already been taken in Texas. Lisa Shing has more.
5 years ago, Bob Kiro's son, Robert, was killed by a drunk driver while out for a morning run.
He kissed his wife goodbye and was gone only 10 or 15 minutes when a driver came through the intersection driving at high speed.
He left behind 4 children, ages 14 to 19, and that's why Kiro supports the Ontario government exploring making impaired drivers pay child support if they kill the parents or guardian of a minor.
It's not ever going to make it better or easier for the person emotionally, but at least if you can remove some of that financial obligation that came with this, unexpectedly.
The devastating impact reaches far beyond the immediate loss.
The province floating the idea as it's been cracking down on crime in recent months.
We're looking at other jurisdictions to see what they do.
In 2023, Texas introduced a similar law that requires drivers convicted of intoxicated manslaughter pay child support until that young person turns 18. Canada's Mothers Against Drunk Driving supports potential legislation, but says insurance companies may already provide some coverage.
It's really important that insurance is a part of these consultations because I don't think we're going to eliminate the role of insurance. I think that will still be the main support.
It's a good idea in principle.
This criminal lawyer says this measure might not deter someone from driving impaired, and
it's assuming the person who injures someone or incidentally, kills somebody has money. That's the assumption, right? Which is not the case, I can tell you, for a lot of people.
For Carreau, though, a law would also be symbolic. The driver taking on at least some of the financial burden after taking a life. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The World Health Organization released an updated report on sexual violence against women. It shows nearly 1 in 3 women globally have experienced it during their lifetime, a figure the UN agency says has barely changed in the last 2 decades.
Violence against women remains one of the most pervasive global public health crises and challenges, human rights violations of our time. And essentially, every community, the whole world, is somehow affected.
This year alone, 316 million women have experienced physical or sexual violence by a partner. And women in conflict areas or in less developed countries are even more affected. The WHO says reducing intimate partner violence has been a challenge, barely seeing progress since the year 2000. A deadly Israeli drone strike hit a Palestinian refugee camp in southern Lebanon. At least 13 people were killed. Israel said it targeted a Hamas training compound in the area. This comes as tensions between Israel and militants are escalating. Israel has now issued evacuation notices for 2 villages, describing them as Hezbollah infrastructure. It's warned of more attacks to come. A new global health threat experts are warning about that may have you looking in your grocery cart to make changes. More and more processed foods are showing up in our diet. And new research suggests it's linked to increased risk of chronic diseases. As Jennifer Yoon explains, experts say now is the time to take action.
TV dinners, mass-produced spreads, and breakfast cereals. Millions of Canadians eat ultra-processed foods. Now a warning from top global experts on how harmful they are.
Human beings are not adapted to ultra-processed food.
In a series of studies published in The Lancet, researchers found eating more ultra-processed foods was associated with higher risk of several diseases like obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and depression. In Canada, more than half of the foods we buy are ultra-processed, a figure that has more than doubled since the 1930s.
This is the most convincing explanation for the pandemic of chronic diseases.
Ultra-processed foods are made to be super palatable. They're also easy to prepare, have a longer shelf life, and are often cheaper. This researcher says food literacy is a big contributor to childhood obesity in Canada.
Simply understanding how to hold a knife and chop up vegetables. That's a simple food skill that some families and children do not have.
But that's only one piece of the puzzle.
They're not just more convenient, they're the only option for people depending on their circumstance.
This food bank offers whole foods, but they know some people can't use them.
Oftentimes they don't have access to a proper kitchen to safely store and safely prepare fresh foods.
But there are ways to reduce consumption. Some countries have free school lunch programs focused on whole foods. Others have labeling requirements for unhealthy foods. Canada can take steps too, says this researcher.
We have a great opportunity to address the chronic diseases that we're facing in this country by changing the food system, and we can't just be the last country to do so.
Researchers argue policies that help Canadians access and choose healthy food will prevent diseases down the line. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Just a month after a stunning daylight heist exposed security flaws, the director of the Louvre has announced new measures to tighten security at the Paris landmark. 100 cameras are expected to be installed and running by the end of next year. A new security coordinator role has also been created. During last month's robbery, it took thieves less than 8 minutes to steal pieces worth nearly $140 million. Police have since made arrests, but the stolen pieces have yet to be recovered. All right, time to bring Riley in. And Riley, it's not just Manitoba that's been seeing above seasonal temperatures.
Thanks, Brittany. It is not just us that is seeing some of these above seasonal temperatures. We'll take a bit of a wider look at that in just a moment, but I would expect we'll start with the dog walking forecast as we always do at this time. We are looking at things a bit brighter as we head into the day on Thursday, and I'm sure that Charlotte will absolutely love that. Thank you, Debbie and Graham, for sending this picture. And Charlotte clearly enjoying the deck, the patio in the backyard. Well, you know, with a bit of sunshine tomorrow, probably will be a nice one for that because we aren't looking at winds too strong tomorrow. More of a westerly to northwesterly wind as we get through the day tomorrow, up to 3 degrees in the afternoon for Winnipeg. And by the time we get into the evening, clear to a partly cloudy sky, maybe a bit of cloud cover hanging around just as we see that high pressure slipping south of the border. Temperature still around 2 degrees by supper time tomorrow. So wider look at temperatures really across the west, and you can see a bit of a defined ridge. A fairly weak one, though, over parts of Western Canada that has kept things above seasonal for this time of the year for places like Calgary through Regina, Bismarck at 9 degrees, a bit of warmth the further south you go. Kansas City at 12, for example, 6s and 7s through Windsor and Toronto. For the most part, these temperatures, particularly for the western part of the country, sitting several degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. So officially hitting 4 degrees in Winnipeg through the afternoon. Normally we should be at -3. The record for this date back in 1917 at 14 degrees. So that gives you a sense of where we could be and where we're at. Still above seasonal, but not quite that warm. Temperatures overnight, again, remaining above seasonal for this time of the year. Looking in the west, partly cloudy skies. We'll get some clearing as we get through the overnight hours. -4 in Brandon, Roblin at -6 degrees. And we do have that possibility through southeastern Manitoba, northwestern Ontario, seeing some fog through the overnight hours. So keep that in mind if you have any travel through the early part of the day tomorrow. Looking at a general 2 to 5 centimeters as this first low starts to depart parts of northern Manitoba through the night, -5 in Thompson, some of that still tapering off as we get into the morning hours tomorrow. So more like periods of snow in Churchill at -4 through the afternoon, and temperatures closer to freezing for places like the Pas, OCN, into Grand Rapids. And for the south, Brittany, we're looking at temperatures above seasonal, around 5 degrees in Brandon, and we are looking at sunshine featuring quite prominently throughout the day. You're 7 days on the way.
All right. Thank you, Riley. Well, as you heard earlier in the show, the Premier has laid out a number of lofty promises his NDP government plans to fulfill in the coming years. Now, Wab Kinew says they plan to make life cheaper and safer for Manitobans. The Premier joined Marcy Marcusa to talk about grocery prices and his commitment to lowering costs. So here's more of that conversation.
Well, we'll roll those out in the spring budget, some specific details. We all see what's happening with the price of groceries. And so I think the first step is just to make sure that the steps that we're going to take in these budget measures are going to be the right ones that will actually make a difference for consumers. There are, like, a provincial government can't do everything, right? Like
you can consider removing the PST from grocery store bills. Is that where we're leaning? Is that where we're going?
You'll see the specific details on budget day.
Is that something you're considering?
Well, I think when we look at the gas tax cut, that put money in people's pockets. That stopped runaway inflation in Manitoba. So, you know, my left-wing economics profs are not going to like this, so the fact that I was their student 20 years ago or whatever, but the reality is it helps people. And so, yeah, that's certainly one thing we'll look at. But
so you know, I need to confirm this as a journalist. The PST is on the table?
Well, I think the first thing that we're announcing here is a steady, because who are the large players? Do we have enough competition amongst those big chains?
Okay.
I was there 6:30 in the morning. A lot of excitement at the new Costco. People are serious about saving money. People are serious about competition in the grocery store. So that'll be one thing we look at. You got the independents, the local grocers. We want to see what's going on there. Are there things with our distribution system? We do a lot on the ag side too, freezing ag crown land lease rates for beef producers. We've seen what's happening with the price of beef. We're trying to do what we can at the provincial level to control the costs that are the inputs for the beef producers.
So there's a number of measures.
It's going to have to be a comprehensive approach. Yeah, it's a big challenge for
more
people.
Details in the spring. I know you dodged the tax question here, so I won't ask it a third time. That's okay. You are pushing ahead with a supervised consumption site. We've heard some reaction in the news this morning. I want to look at another perspective.
Okay.
Many welcome this. But you also know that, you know, the first proposed site that you looked at, people weren't happy about that. You're moving it somewhere else in the downtown. People may only get, days notice before it opens in the new year. What about someone who's worried the facility won't belong in their neighborhood?
Well, I think everyone knows where the facility is going to go. I mean, you drive up Main Street and you see a humanitarian crisis. It's just awful, the way folks are living out on the street. And you got the Salvation Army, you got Siloam Mission, you have Main Street Project. So it's pretty clear that that's where the need is. And so where do we locate a facility in that general area? But it's not going to be right across the street from a school or a childcare center. That's what we've been working on. But we've done a lot of outreach. We campaigned on this. This is a well-known thing that the addictions medicine doctors tell us is one of the tools. Again, it's not a silver bullet, but it's one of the tools that can help save lives. So we're investing in recovery. We gave all the media a tour of the Sobering Center earlier this week, so that's a part of the solution too. We have enforcement, we have prevention, we have other forms of harm reduction, and now this is one more tool that we can add to that comprehensive approach to just try and help people get well. And you know what? The idea of supervised consumption is one part of it, but part of it is also just getting people health care. If people are living a high-risk lifestyle where there's drug use, where there's needles and stuff like that, they need to see a doctor. They need to see a nurse practitioner. And so connecting them with those services as well as talking to them about recovery and treatment is part of the mission here.
In your view, if there are still people that are worried about having something like this in their neighborhood, And I'm not just pushing at the not in my backyard thing, but what my question to you is, what don't they understand about the impact then? If it's not going to be an issue, what would you say you would like?
I think people are smart. I don't know that it's that they don't understand. What I would just say is this. This doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? The alternative to having a supervised consumption is to have unsupervised consumption in the street. That's the alternative, because that's what we have now. I prefer to have, this behavior that's causing harm. I prefer having that behind closed doors under the supervision of medical professionals instead of us all driving by it on our commute home from work.
We have sad news from Winnipeg's art scene tonight. Ian Ross, the creator of CBC's Joe from Winnipeg, has died. He was an award-winning playwright and author. Ross helped mentor young playwrights and a new generation of Indigenous storytellers. He was 57. Still ahead, wolves in BC appear to be getting smarter. What researchers are saying about this video, plus your last check on our forecast, is next. Stay with us. Madagascar's president says officials have found a large emerald rock at the presidential palace, but it's unclear how it ended up there. The rock weighs 300 kilograms. Madagascar is one of the poorest countries in the world. However, it has an abundance of natural resources and precious stones. The military government says that it aims to redistribute wealth from the discovery to its people. And to avoid corruption fears, the president's office says it wants to be completely transparent with the public.
Time for a look at your 7-day forecast now, and temperatures remaining warm as we push through the weekend here. As I showed you in the 5-day earlier, temperatures and sky conditions remaining fairly sunny as we get even into next Monday. A bit of cloud starts to roll in at 4 degrees. Advancing into the 7-day though, and I am watching a system that looks like it will develop over the weekend into the Rockies, which could bring us some snow as we get toward the middle of next week. Looking at a fairly good chance right now, some light snow beginning on Tuesday across southern Manitoba and continuing into Wednesday for parts of the south as well. Couple of weather pictures for you tonight. First, I want you to draw your attention. You have to look closely up here. This is an eagle. Thank you, Lauren, for taking this picture near Lorette. And one more picture for you of the sunset over the Assiniboine River. Thank you, Bill, for sending this picture in. And as always, you can send your pictures to talkback@cbc.ca.
Okay, thank you, Riley. We love to see all those amazing photos. It's being called a breakthrough in animal evolution. A new video reveals how far wolves will go to steal a meal. This very determined and probably hungry wolf is our daily lift. So this is a look at a wolf on the BC coast doing something that's never been caught on video before. It's using a tool. Researchers say wolves have learned to swim out, dive down, and pull crab traps onto the beach by the rope. The wolves are after the fish that are inside that orange cup. That's being used as bait. The cameras picked up a second sea wolf also pulling up a crab trap in a similar way earlier this year, leading researchers to believe other wolves may have learned from each other. It's a breakthrough in understanding animal intelligence. They are smart, I'll give them that. And now they're eating our crabs and our fish too. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.